Before we begin, since this is a BBC-owned property, I feel the need to point out that the news arm of the BBC has a continuing issue with transphobic leanings in its news coverage. You can find in a pinned comment below various videos from both myself and other YouTubers covering this issue. And while I understand that the Doctor Who creative team is not responsible for this, I will continue to point this out for as long as it remains a consistent issue. Thank you. Well, we have gone through the Timeless Child escapades. Let's see how the episode's sorted out. Yeah, I do this after I revisit a series. Let's rank the episodes. Okay, a couple things before I get into this. The first is that next week will be my Take Two review of Revolution of the Daleks. But after that, Take Two reviews are going to go on hold again for a little bit. There's two reasons for this. The first is I actually want to put a little more distance between the frustration of revisiting the Timeless Child arc. And also I want a little more distance from my first viewing of Flux itself. How far down the line I'll pick it up again and do the revisit, I don't know right now. Because the other reason is that I really have some other stuff that I need to get done and have been trying to get done for a while, and I need the time. So I need to drop the Wednesday videos for a bit. And since Take Two, Doctor Who's been occupying the Wednesday slot, it's going to go on hold. I will come back after Resolution. We'll do Flux. We'll do the specials. We will, just not right away. But before we can even get to that special, we need to talk about these episodes. This was a bit of a frustrating revisit, this series for me, because, and I think I do still feel it is the best of the Chibnall era, but there were things I already knew I didn't like, and I found a whole bunch of stuff that I'd either forgotten or hadn't noticed the first time that rubbed me up the wrong way again. And that's somewhat reflected in this ranking. There's only 10 episodes to cover. I am breaking Spyfall into two different things to consider since I did review them separately. Start at the bottom, work our way up, starting with number 10, The Timeless Children. It was either going to be this or the next one, but after revisiting this episode and realizing that it wasn't just a matter of the exposition that is given and everything that implies about increasing the importance of the Doctor and all that other stuff, my old feeling was like, that is really bad. But a lot of the rest of stuff that's around it is fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. That's not true. It's not true. Like, that stuff is bad. All the stuff in the Matrix, or I can't think of it as anything other than the exposition machine at this point. All the stuff related to that, not only the information given, but the way it's given, the way it is presented, not only to the Doctor, but to us, is just bad. It is a bad presentation of what I already think is a bad idea, but almost everything else around it is also bad. About the only good stuff are a couple of little tiny moments, like some little performance moments from the Master, but that's it. That's it. This was infuriatingly bad, and yeah, it is the worst of this series. Number 9, Orphan 55. Yeah, it shouldn't be a huge shock. Now, the thing is, I'm not actually as down on Orphan 55 as a lot of people are. I think it's ultimately an issue of intent between the writing and the production, because there's a sense of camp to the writing and to a lot of the elements present, but it's presented very matter-of-factly, straightforward, and seriously for most of it. And it's a mess. This is a mess. But I do have to wonder, is it a mess because it needed to be handled on the production end in a way that embraced the fact that it's kind of dumb, rather than trying to offset the fact that it's kind of dumb, which is what it feels like it's doing? Would it have been a good episode if they'd done that? I don't know. I think it would have been better than what we got, though. So this gets above Timeless Children, largely because I can envision a way in which it at least doesn't end up all the way down here. Timeless Children, I at this point, it really does feel unsalvageable without a complete from the ground up rewrite. Number 8, Ascension of the Cybermen. Again, my initial memory was that the setup episode for the finale wasn't that bad. and it was just the finale that dropped the ball. It's not great though. And I mean, part of this is the sins of what comes later. It's setting up stuff that is really going to irritate me. And so it's hard to take much enjoyment from what this episode presents, since most of what it's doing is all stuff that is either going to go nowhere or go somewhere that I don't like. So despite Ashad continuing to be a really good, fascinating villain, there just isn't a lot here to salvage for me. Again, certainly better than what we get in the following episode, but yeah, there just isn't really much that I found enjoyment in here. Number 7, The Haunting of Villa Diodati. Yeah, this is going to be the big controversial placement, I suspect. Look, it's not that the episode as a whole is bad. It's not. It's actually got some of the best production, really great presentation, fantastic atmosphere, really good acting. But the things that it does that tick me off are things that really, really tick me off. So this is not a case of everything you did was wrong. This is a case of the things that you did wrong, at least to my view and what I feel is wrong about it, are things that I hate so much that it's going to drag the whole thing down, even with all this other good stuff, even with good performances, even with good direction, even with solid build and anticipation and atmosphere and Ashad getting introduced. And again, he's really good. But the stuff that I can't stand, the focus on the great man of history approach to how Doctor Who handles its historicals, some of the specific things that she says reinforcing that, the complete disregard for the deaths of the other people, and it just reinforces Doctor Who's worst habits about ignoring ordinary people while aggrandizing the people recorded by history as if they are the only ones who ever matter. And I hate that so much. I cannot in good conscience put this any higher, even though I recognize all its strengths. What it does wrong, I just hate. I hate it. Number 6, Praxius is fine. I mean, that's kind of it. It's fine. It's tackling some of the same things as Orphan 55 in terms of themes. It handles them better. They're better integrated. Some of the effects are unsettling in a way that I think works. Some other effects really don't look very good at all, but I mean, it's Doctor Who. That's kind of what you get. Some of the characters, some of the guest casts even have some decent moments, and Yaz gets some of her stronger material in this. I really did completely forget the climax of this and how it ended, because it doesn't stick with you at all. Like, the strong stuff is all kind of in the front end and maybe a little in the middle, and it's not that it falls apart, but it just kind of turns into white noise by the end. Number 5, Spyfall Part 2. So this is a case where there's the good stuff, there's the bad stuff, and there's almost an even mix of it. And in this case, the bad stuff isn't really bad. It's just an unfortunate set of priorities, because Dewan's stuff, the Master in this, I think is really good. The problem is, this is the second part of a story where the Master was only introduced at the very end of the previous episode, and that he then completely dominates this half, and it loses track of what else it's doing. It doesn't manage to really get in there and pay off a whole bunch of the other stuff that was set up, which was most of the previous episode. It just deals with it very haphazardly, very offhandedly, because the Doctor the Master kind of devours the story. And as much as I like the Master, I kind of wanted to see where the actual narrative was going to go. And he takes it over so much that I do have to kind of knock it down a little bit for that. Number 4. Okay, now we're into the stuff that I do think is, like, it's good. It's good. Not too many reservations. It's good. Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. This was definitely better than I remembered it. I remembered it being kind of forgettable, but its use of its theming and its integrating of these specific multiple historical figures into the way that it is approaching the villains and how things are going with the Doctor, and the surprising amount of depth given to someone like Edison, even though he is kind of an antagonist within the narrative. Yeah, this is one of the better historicals, I would say, of the modern era Doctor Who run overall, and as well as being one of the best of this run, absolutely. But it's really solid. It's a lot stronger than I had given it credit for before. Not too much really blows me away about it, but sometimes just having something really solidly put together, good performances, good moments, the themes and the overall things, and the points you're going for are all knitted together well. I can't be upset about that. Number 3, Spyfall Part 1. I do think this is actually a really strong setup, and it's got a really great cliffhanger. I am choosing to not drag it down too much for knowing that the big reveal of the Master at the end kind of destroys the narrative when we get into the second half, or at least takes it over. But setting that aside, as an episode unto itself, as a setup, as a start to the series, as an introduction to a different feel with the spy-related stuff, to the weirdness of the aliens, to just the overall sort of moving forward and the James Bondiness of it, of certain moments, like the soundtrack and the gadgets and all this, like, this is just fun. This is good fun. It's a good setup. It made me really want the next episode. And that's the job of the first half of a two-parter. And it did its job. Number 2, Fugitive of the Jedune. You know what? Even now, knowing that the Fugitive Doctor goes almost nowhere, does not get properly delved into, paid off, doesn't feel particularly rewarding, it speaks to how much I love Joe Martin doing this part, that this is as high as it is. And that said, the way the reveal is handled, despite some aspects of the reveal not making a lot of sense, but honestly, things like not explaining why this doctor's TARDIS is a police box, and not figuring out where she falls within the time frame, and then later on we have the clear implication that she's pre-Hartnell and all that. Like, those are problems I feel like with the series overall and how she was handled overall, not specific to this episode, because I don't think it was this episode's obligation to answer all of those. I do think it was the series' obligation to eventually answer some of them, but different issues. Within this episode itself, Joe Martin nails it. She's great as Ruth, and then she's great as the Doctor. And this is just a fun ride. Even knowing that ultimately almost everything that it sets up in this goes nowhere, I still enjoy revisiting it. It's fun. I like it. And number 1, Can You Hear Me? And I know I'm a little bit of a defender of this one compared to some other people's feelings about it. I still think it's fantastic. I really like the way that it handles its allegory and its metaphor in terms of mental health and depression. Is it on the nose? Yeah, a bit, but I still think it's well thought out enough that I really enjoy it. I love the concepts of these antagonists. I like the way that just the whole thing progresses and moves forward, and there's this unsettling atmosphere in the sense that the Doctor's really truly up against something that is out of her league, which is not something we get that feeling for all that often anymore. And it was quite enjoyable for that. And I still like it. It's probably the episode of the Chibnall era I've rewatched the most. And knowing that my tendency to rewatch often means I find new problems, this continues to hold up. Watch after watch, view after view, I still really like it. I think it's really good. I know not everyone does. And if you want to hear my reasons for it, or my reasons for any of these, really, check the individual reviews out. But I think this is still a really great episode. So that's my thoughts on Series 12. Once I get through Flux and the specials, I suppose I have to do a ranking of the best of the Chibnall era overall. Best and worst, maybe? I got to figure out if I'm going to do best and worst of the overall era or best and worst of Chibnall as a writer. Because if I do that, I'm going to have to integrate the stuff he did prior to being showrunner and or possibly Torchwood. I'd have to decide about that. I don't know. I got to figure it out. These are things for future me to worry about. But present me is done for right now and wants to know, what do you think about this? What would your ranking be? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. Any amount you can give me is of great assistance, and there are perks at every support tier, but even if you can't, like, share, subscribe also help me out. There's links in the description for other things that I do where you can check out my other works, but don't worry too much about it, because what I really want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you are valid, you are loved. You are the council, I'm just running the meetings, and until next time, this council is adjourned. And now my thanks to my highest supporters on Patreon. Robin Moore, Zubin Lafula, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Leo the Boyd, Becky Sparks, Fernabulax, the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Tim Price, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, and Rosalind Bennett. Thanks for your support. And if you want to get your name in the credits, check out the rewards on the Patreon.